Today, we're going to journey back, way back, like 3,000 years into the past, to explore a really foundational time in Indian history, the Vedic period. Now, this wasn't an age that wasn't defined by giant pyramids or huge stone monuments. Nope, it was defined by incredibly powerful words and ideas, passed down person to person for generations. So let's dive in and figure out how we know what we know. And it all really boils down to this one central question. How on earth did a collection of ancient religious hymns, songs and chants from thousands of years ago, lay the groundwork for the social, religious, and philosophical traditions that influence more than 1 billion people today? That's the incredible story we're going to unpack. So here's our game plan. First, we'll set the scene, the when and the where. Then we'll get into the amazing literature that actually gives this period its name. We'll look at what life was like in the beginning, what happened to cause this massive, massive shift, and what life became after that. And finally, we'll touch on the legacy that's still with us today. Okay, first things first. Before we can get into the heart of the story, we've got to get our bearings, right? We need to know the when and the where to really make sense of it all. So, the Vedic age spans about 1,000 years, and a really easy way to think about it is to split it into two halves. You've got the early Vedic period from roughly 1500 to 1000 BCE. This is when the very first, the oldest hymns were being composed. But then, right around 1000 BCE, something huge happens, the discovery of iron. This piece of technology kicks off the later Vedic period, which runs from 1000 to 500 BCE, and believe me, it was a time of massive, massive change. And that change wasn't just about new tools, it was also about geography. The early Vedic people, sometimes called the Aryans, they were settled up in the northwest, in a region they called the Sapta Sindhu, which basically means the land of 7 rivers. But during that later Vedic period, they started moving, pushing steadily eastward, right into the super dense forests of the Gangetic Valley, and we're going to see exactly why in just a bit. So you might be wondering, how do we know any of this stuff? Well, our main window into this ancient world is this incredible body of literature they left behind. And these texts weren't just religious scriptures, they were like a storehouse for their entire culture. Okay, so Vedic literature is broken down into two main types, and this distinction is really important to get. On one side, you have Shruti, which means what is heard. These texts, like the 4 Vedas, are believed to be divinely revealed, like straight from God, and they were passed down orally, word for word, perfectly from teacher to student. On the other side is Smriti, which means what is remembered. These were written by human sages, or rishis, and they include things like law books and the great epics. What's so fascinating is how you can see the ideas evolving through these texts. It all starts with the 4 Vedas, the core collections of hymns and chants. Then you get the Brahmanas, which are basically instruction manuals, prose commentaries explaining all the rituals. After that come the Aranyakas, or forest books, which start to shift the focus toward mysticism and symbolism. And finally, you get the Upanishads, which are these incredibly deep philosophical texts that introduce world-changing ideas like karma and moksha. It's like watching a thought grow over centuries. Now, the oldest and most important of all of these is the Rig Veda. This text is a huge deal. It's one of the oldest surviving religious texts in the entire world. It's so significant that it's recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Text, and it's where you'll find the famous Gayatri Mantra, a prayer for spiritual enlightenment that's still chanted today. The Rig Veda is our #1 source for understanding that early period. So let's use the Rig Veda as our guide. What did that early society actually look like? Let's try to step into their world, which was all about herding and moving around. So picture this. Life is organized around the family, the kula, which was patriarchal. A bunch of families would get together to form a village, or grama. Now, there was a king, the Rajan, but he wasn't some all-powerful dictator. Not at all. His power was kept in check by these tribal assemblies, like the Sabha, a council of elders, and the Samiti, which was more like a general assembly of the people. The king didn't even have a regular army. And wealth, it wasn't about land. It was all about how many cattle you had. And here's something that's absolutely crucial to remember for later. During this early period, women held a pretty respectable position. They could get an education, they could take part in religious ceremonies, and they were even allowed to attend those important tribal assemblies. In fact, some women, like Ghosha and Lopamudra, were so brilliant they actually composed hymns that made it into the Vedas themselves. And they could even choose their own husbands. Just file that away. It's going to be a really important point of contrast. Okay,
Now we get to the big turning point. Remember that technological discovery we mentioned? The one that changed everything? Well, this is it. This is the catalyst that's about to completely transform their pastoral world.
And that game-changing catalyst was iron. Simple as that. Around 1000 BCE, they figured out how to work with iron. Now, this was a massive leap forward from the softer bronze and copper they'd been using. With iron, they could forge tools that were way stronger. Tougher axes, plows, sickles, and of course, weapons. This new tech had a huge impact on their entire world. Remember that eastward migration we talked about? Well, the dense forests of the Gangetic Plain had been basically impossible to clear with their old bronze tools. But with new, strong iron axes, they could chop down the forests, and with iron plows, they could till the hard soil. This literally opened up vast new territories for farming, and it's what allowed them to shift from being semi-nomadic herders to becoming settled farmers. So, what happens when you get a new home and a totally new economy based on farming? Well, you get a completely new social order, new rules, new gods, new power structures. Everything changed. Let's see how this all played out. This table really lays out the transformation perfectly. Look at society. That flexible class-by-profession system, it hardened into a rigid, hereditary caste system. And the rights that women enjoyed, they declined big time. In the economy, wealth went from being about cattle to being all about land. Trade started to boom, and you even see guilds and coins popping up. And religion? The old nature gods, like Indra, the god of thunder, lost their top spots to a new trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And the rituals got way more complex. This new social structure, the Varna system, was now hereditary. You were born into your class. Society was split into 4 main groups: the Brahmins, who were the priests and scholars; the Kshatriyas, the warriors and rulers; the Vaishyas, the farmers and merchants; and the Shudras, who served the other 3. This was a massive change from the early days when your profession was more of a choice. And remember what I asked you to file away about the status of women? Well, here's the after picture. It's a really stark contrast. In the later Vedic period, their status just plummeted. They lost their access to education. They were banned from public assemblies. Their freedom in marriage was taken away. This huge shift, which is often tied to the new importance of owning land and having a rigid society where your bloodline was everything, completely reshaped family and social life for centuries. All right, as we start to wrap this up, let's zoom out a bit. How did the ideas from this 1000-year period not just disappear, but actually go on to become the cornerstones of Indian culture and philosophy? Well, it's during this later period that India's foundational epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, started to take shape. These are just massive, incredible works of literature that took all those Vedic ideals and wove them into unforgettable stories. They explore these timeless themes of duty, which is dharma, morality, and sacrifice, themes that still resonate so deeply today. Okay, so if you're going to remember just a few things from all this, let's make it these 4. 1, the Vedas are a main window into this era. 2, the shift from bronze to iron was the big domino that knocked everything else over. 3, society went from being this fluid nomadic group to a settled agricultural one with a rigid social structure. And 4, the huge philosophical ideas that still shape the world, like karma, dharma, and moksha, got their start right here in the Upanishads. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. Of all the powerful ideas to come out of the Vedic age, which one do you think has the biggest impact on our world today? Is it karma, the idea that every action has a reaction? Is it dharma, the concept of living a righteous and dutiful life? Or is it moksha, the ultimate quest for spiritual liberation? You know, it's a real testament to the power of this ancient period that we're all still grappling with its questions today.